Hey, Dave.
Hey, how's it going?
So good, man. So good to have you here.
Good to
Glad
see
it's,
you.
glad it's up and working. You never know, right?
Yeah.
I know you live on these things today too, but I know I was like, okay, hopefully this works. So we're just gonna give it a couple more minutes to let some more people join, and then we'll get started.
Cool.
All right. And we are live on YouTube. That's cool. All right.
Yeah.
It's working. Yay.
I didn't know you could do that. That's cool.
It's part of the it's part of Zoom webinar where they allow you.
Oh, okay.
I realized this at a high probability, a high chance of attracting people just looking to trolls and other things. And I
Sure.
was like, wait, the webinar, I know I can lock things down. And it also, I didn't realize it had built-in YouTube streaming. The only thing that's sort of weird is every time you go to live stream it, you have to set it up again. Like it's not like you just like it goes, what channel do you want? I'm like, oh come on, every time. And it does it outside, it does it in a web browser. But so I figured, that way I shared the Zoom link with the students and the community, and then everybody else can just be on YouTube. I can't see what's going on YouTube. I'm like, who knows what the comments might happen over there, but at least here we can keep it sane, you
Sure.
know? So, all right. Oh, cool. People are starting to roll in. Nice, nice, nice. Welcome, everybody. We're going to get started in just a minute. Just getting things up, waiting for a few more people to dive in, and then we're going to start. You know what? You ready to do this, Dave?
I am, yeah.
All right, cool. Let's do this. All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to what I'm calling a scholar strike conversation. My name is CC Chapman. I am an instructor of business and management at Wheaton College outside of Boston, Massachusetts. Today, my whole point of this, if you're not aware of the scholar strike, go to scholarstrike.com. The whole goal is to have faculty, students, staff, colleges from around the country and Canada to, take a stop, like so many other people have done over these past weeks and months and years, and take a stop and focus on all the racial problems we have in this country. And whereas I didn't want to just cancel my classes, I said, well, what can I do to do something different for my students, for the community, for this whole effort? And I thought, well, wait a minute. I know so many diverse and awesome people from my years around the globe. I was like, wait, let me bring together a variety of different Black entrepreneurs from a variety of different angles who can talk about, the struggle they've had to overcome to be successful. And, my students know, we talk about it all the time, that there is struggles no matter who you are in the business world. But if you're a non-white male person, it makes even harder. There's a million roadblocks. So this morning, I'm really, really excited. I have my good buddy, David Dylan Thomas, who is the author of the brand new book, Design for Cognitive Bias, From a Book Apart. We're going to talk about that. He serves as the content strategy advocate at Think Company and is the creator and host of the Cognitive Bias podcast. He's developed digital strategies for major clients in entertainment, healthcare, publishing, finance, and retail. He's presented at TED NYC, South by Southwest, where we met, Confab, LavaCon, UX Copenhagen, Artifact, IA Conference, Design and Content Conference, and the Wharton Web Conference on topics at the intersection of bias, design, and social justice. David, welcome.
Thank you so much, and good to see you again. It's been a minute.
I know. I was trying to think when the last time we saw each other.
It was at some South by Southwest,
know,
like
right?
Just passing in the streets of Austin, I think, sort of situation.
And that's scary because I know I haven't been in a few years. And, it's been a long time since we had donuts together. I was going to add that to your bio. And he's a big fan of donuts.
Yes.
Explain donuts.
Sure.
So, I think it's an interesting story.
Totally. So Cece and I both knew a guy named Brad Graham, who back in the very early days of South by Southwest, it was basically a place where bloggers, when that was a new thing in the early 2000s, it was the one time a year they could all kind of get together and actually see each other in person. This is before it became like all Twitter launching apps and stuff. And the very opening night of South by Southwest, our mutual friend Brad Graham would hold this thing called Break Bread with Brad. It was just a welcome to South by thing. And you would get a little name tag that said, hello, my URL is blank. And you would write in like whatever your blog was, right? It was a very early 2000s kind of event. And he was this awesome guy who unfortunately passed away in the early 2010s. And I decided to carry on his tradition by something I called Dunk Donuts with Dave instead of Break Bread with Brad. And for me, my name tag said, lately I've been thinking about blank, and you fill that out. And we'd go out to Gordo's, which is this donut truck in Austin with donuts the size of your head
Yeah.
with like fried chicken on top of them. And we would just talk about whatever ideas we're brewing. So that, I still do that today. I call it the idea exchange now, and I do it virtually. I should invite you to one, Stacey. You'd love it.
Yeah.
But I still try to do that today, even in coronavirus world.
Yeah, it's crazy how South by brought so many of us together over the years. For those of you watching, who don't know, South by Southwest is this massive conference, music, interactive, film, and us who got there in the early days, but like you said before, Foursquares and the Twitters and the brands took over. It was it was small as far as, there were still tens of thousands of people.
Yeah.
But then at its peak, it was, I don't know, 60, 70,000. It's
crazy.
Oh,
it's over 100,000. It's ridiculous.
I can't imagine. I was so glad they canceled this year. Glad as from a safety perspective. I can't even.
Yeah, that was actually my, I think everyone has their own moment when they realized coronavirus was real. That was my moment. It was like, I'm going. Okay, maybe I'm going. Okay, I don't know if my company wants me to go. And then the thing came down. It's like, oh, they're actually not even going to have it. And what made me realize that was real is that is literally saying goodbye to over $1 billion.
Right.
There's no question that's the scale of that decision. I'm like, oh, this is real.
Yeah, that was a big moment because it's in March and it's usually our spring break at Wheaton. So I was all psyched. I was actually going to the educational track for the first time, and then all of a sudden, boom, I'm like, wait, this isn't going to work. And then all of a sudden they announced, and it's a big business. Like you said, it's $1 billion for the city of Austin. I don't think people understand the scope of this conference. It's crazy. One thing I realized too, I forgot to mention for anybody watching on Zoom, specifically students, I encourage you, there's a Q&A button at the bottom. Please type your questions into there. For security reasons, that's how we're doing questions, and I will definitely ask them. But please, I encourage you, as some of you, I recognize some of my students in here and some strangers. Please ask questions because that's how we're going to do this all day. And I know Dave is totally on board with answering any sort of questions. So tell me about the new book.
So I wrote this book called Design for Cognitive Bias. And the basic premise is that as designers, our job is to help people make decisions. And the better we are at understanding how people make decisions, the better we're going to be at our jobs. And so I break that down into the decisions that our users have to make when they're using our products and the biases they have and how to kind of mitigate those, or maybe even use them for good. The biases that our stakeholders and our organizations have, which as business students, you really need to pay close attention to because organizations have the same biases as people and they're just as destructive. And then as designers, what are our biases, right? That we don't even know we have and that we're injecting into our products and making life worse for people. How do we detect those? So it really kind of goes along that cadence. And I say it's really, I say, and so do the people who've read the book say, it's called Design for Cognitive Bias, but it's really for anybody whose job is to help people make decisions. People outside of the design realm are finding a lot of value in this book.
So now when I think of bias, and I've been through bias training and that sort of stuff, does race and seated those sort of bias, does that play into the design world at all?
Absolutely. If you think about, there's any number of different versions of this, but if you think about the Google algorithm that started to identify Black people as gorillas, right? That was a design choice, a programming choice, a coding choice that I don't think was deliberately trying to be racist, but because of biases that people have and blind spots really that people have. It's a good way to think about them. It's what is your blind spots? How are those now going into your products and going out in the world? The example I like to give is Amazon was creating a robot to help them figure out who to hire.
Okay.
And it kept recommending men and downgrading the resumes of women.
Oh.
When they tried to figure out what was going on, they said, okay, well, how did we train this AI? What did we tell it to look for? And they trained the AI by having it look at the past 10 years of Amazon resumes. Guess what most of those had in common? Mostly guys. Yeah. Right? The AI took one look at that and said, well, gee, you sure must like dudes, and then just kept recommending dudes. And again, I don't think anyone at Amazon woke up one morning and said, hey, I want to make it so that only men get hired. I think that they woke up being white, being male, and not thinking that would have any impact on the products they were designing.
Yeah. That's great. And it's one of those things too, we all joke about, AI is going to take over the world and but we're programming AI, whether or not we mean to, or for the students who may not know, tell the Google and Gorilla story. What was that about? Because we both kind of threw it out there but it was
yeah. So Google, like everybody else on the planet, was working on software that could look at an image and tell you about that image and identify it and categorize it, right? And so when it looked at photos, and all that computer is doing, all any AI is doing, AI is not Skynet, it's not magic.
Right.
AI is a prediction machine, and it makes predictions based on what you've taught it. That's it. It's doing it way faster than we can and with much bigger data sets than we can look at, but that's all it's doing. So it was trying to look at photos and say, okay, what's in this photo? And because of the way it was programmed, the association it was making was between Black people and gorillas, which is a highly racist, trope, which again, even if you're in like the software world, but you have no historical context for any of this, you may not even quite realize just how racist. You might say, oh, well, that's a silly mistake. It's like, no, there's a lot of history there. Yeah. And that's another thing. Like, if you think about the context we bring to design, we think that design is a technical job. Like, you need to understand coding and data sets and all. You do, but if that's the only understanding you're bringing to it, you're going to miss things like, oh, historical context, race relations, like all that stuff. Like, that is part of what that app is doing as well. And we pretend it's a technology problem when actually it's a people problem.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I mean, if it's funny, not funny, if there's one good thing that's come out of the last 6 months, I guess, because God knows there's been plenty of bad things. It seems like more and more people are starting, not enough, because God knows we got a long way to go, but it seems like a lot of people are starting to realize, wait a minute, I was never taught that, or I never was exposed. I never really thought about that. Like, there was a tweet I remember seeing months ago, and it just said, hey, just curious, it was from a complete stranger. I didn't know. I just saw it retweeted. It said, when did you have your first Black teacher? And I had to stop and like literally think about it. And for me, the answer is college. I did not. And like, I can only remember one Black professor in college. But I like the fact that like I never had a Black teacher, or I can't even remember like a Black teacher in my school. I mean, I went to a small New Hampshire school, so you knew, even if you didn't have, there was 2 6th grade teachers stuff. But that shocked me. Like, I hadn't thought about that and processed that. And I'm not alone in that. At least I'm trying to change things and improve things. But there's a lot of people who just they've never had this. And I'm hoping these things are starting to open people's eyes and brains a little bit.
Yeah, and it's pattern recognition. I mean, the whole reason I wrote the book, the whole reason I started doing a podcast is I saw this talk by Iris Bennett called Gender Equality by Design. It's an amazing talk. You can find it on YouTube. And one of the arguments she's making is that a lot of racial bias, a lot of gender bias is coming down to simple pattern recognition. And if your whole life, your pattern for teacher is white guy or white woman, it's going to be very hard for you to look at a Black man and put that as a possible like tag on what that person could be. I think that one of the most powerful things Barack Obama did for the world was be Black and president at the same time. Because prior to him, if you watched the news and you saw a Black man on the news, they were either a criminal or a celebrity, right? And then for at least 8 years, you get a Black person on the news being the most powerful person on the planet. Right. So that's a different pattern, right? Yeah. And it's not, a resilient pattern because it's one guy, but it's more than you had before. True. And I am convinced that part of the reason the Black Lives Matter movement was able to grow up during that time is police officers were killing Black people long before Obama, but that fit the pattern because, again, the only pattern we had for Black people was criminal or celebrity. All of a sudden, we had a new pattern for Black people, which is President of the United States. And that causes a little cognitive dissonance. Wait, you can't just shoot the President of the United States. So the phrase Black Lives Matter suddenly made sense in a way that, even though it was true before Obama, it suddenly had more resonance. This is my theory. Right? I don't think it's a coincidence that that's when you get the Black Lives Matter movement, or that's when it starts to be able to actually have some traction. Because all of a sudden, people are like, yeah, they do kind of matter, right? I mean, that's the president. I voted for him. Obama, Michelle's Black too. Yeah, I think she matters. Okay, I could get on board with this Black Lives Matter idea.
That's funny. I never really thought about it that way, but you're right. I mean, I think, I hadn't really thought about it. You're probably totally right. And I love what you said about, people have to see what what they want. I think it's true in so many ways. I know I'm really fortunate. I was just asked this summer to be to be the faculty advisor for something on campus called the OHM initiative, which was started by one of my students who said, he looked at and said, there's not enough minorities being represented in STEM and financial literacy, and he's like, I want to focus that and develop it and build it. And I was like, what a great idea. And then I got asked to be the faculty advisor. I was like, oh, I'm on board. Let me know, because it's so true. I mean, little girls, little boys, little everything, when I think of a scientist, you think of anything you've ever seen. It's an old white dude in a lab coat, in any STEM field. I mean, we need to have representation of all sorts out there. And it's not just black and white. It's every shade, it's every gender, it's everything. And every time I see just a little bit, I'm like, I can't wait till that's not new anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You see a commercial, or you see Serena Williams and her husband and the little girl watching play tennis. And I'm like, there's a high profile mixed race couple, which is not anything new, but it still freaks out some people. And we need to see that.
I think that it's funny. I've been thinking a lot about that lately, and the goal of things, being not new, which is good. But I've been thinking beyond that, because a discussion we have a lot in DEI is this notion of, diversity is you have a whole lot of people at the party, and inclusion is you get invited to dance. Like there's this whole metaphor to sort of explain what those things are. And the one piece I don't see being explained is something that is illustrated really well by this notion of culture fit, right? So we talk a lot about culture fit, and how at first it seems like this very hot tech bro-y kind of thing of like, well, we're not just hiring for skill, we're hiring for culture fit. You want to make sure you fit into our culture, which sounds nice, but inevitably leads to a monoculture. Like by definition, if you fit the culture, then we're just going to have more of the same culture. Then there was a different mindset, which was don't hire for culture fit, hire for culture growth, which is literally the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset, right? Yeah. It's to say that, no, your company is not a fixed thing. It is a living, breathing, growing, evolving thing if it's going to survive, right? So you should actually be hiring people based on not how they're going to fit into your culture, but how they're going to grow it. How are they going to change your culture? And when I think about that from the perspective of like this not being new anymore, that fits into a paradigm of the world is a certain way, and there are these fixed swim lanes. And right now, this swim lane and this swim lane has a lot of different people in it, but this swim lane and that swim lane are mostly white. So isn't it going to be awesome when these two swim lanes are no longer just white? But that's still kind of a fixed mindset, because it's like, it assumes that these are the right swim lanes versus saying, hey, when I bring this person who is different from me, what new swim lane are they going to create? Or what new paradigm that isn't even a swim lane are they going to, like, that's what gets me excited now, is to say, how are you going to fundamentally alter the world and make it better versus assimilate you, right? And that kind of like Borg mindset of like, oh, like the Borg has only been assimilating Asians. They should be assimilating Black people too. Come on,
Someone's watching right now going, the Borg, what? It's a sci-fi reference, right?
Google it.
The Borg, they're evil. No, it's a Star Trek thing. I'm just worried. Today's world, you gotta cover all your bases, right? It's crazy. Again, for those, I see new people joining. If you have questions, click on the Q&A button at the bottom. Dave's here to answer your questions. I'm gonna keep asking the questions. We're gonna keep having a conversation. We haven't seen each other in forever. So how's the family doing?
We're good. I mean, like, of all the people for this to be involved in this, like, we have it very, very, very good. We're extremely lucky. Like, we're in a financial situation where we can weather the storm without much hardship. We can all work from home. From a temperament standpoint, we're very lucky because we're homebodies.
Okay.
Like when this first broke out, it was a lot of like, oh no, we have to stay at home and watch Netflix. Oh no, right? Like if the cure for the virus were to go out to cocktail parties and make small talk, then we'd be suffering. But no, like from a time, but even that honestly has its limits, right? Like you still want to like I like being inside, but come on.
Right.
And Kieran, like literally right now, is doing remote. Like his school started last week, purely virtual, which I am thankful for. And frankly, he was never going to go in.
Right.
Like, he self-selects it out. It's like, nope, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
But even he misses like seeing people, and like it's his fourth year of sixth grade. It's his first year of middle school, and he's having to do it without meeting anybody, without going to a building. Like that sucks. there's a lot of things that suck worse, but it does still suck, you know?
Yeah. Now I'm curious. So as a dad, obviously as a black dad, I mean, your kid, you said 6th grade, they're old enough, right? They're old enough to process and question. I mean, what kind of conversations are you having with them about what's going on?
He is sharp. I mean, to be fair, like his mom and dad are fairly smart people.
Yeah,
but
no, it wouldn't surprise me at all. Yeah.
But he's extremely politically acute. Like, and I think to go back to that Obama example. So I remember, so he was about 8 when Hillary ran. And I remember at one point him asking us, is Hillary a black? And after correcting his grammar, we sort of asked him why he thought that, and it became very clear. Oh, of course, for his entire life, the president of the United States has been a black person. Like, that's his that's his default, which again, that's amazing, right? He has a very different pattern now. And he was never, I remember him watching, like, for whatever reason, they would run Trump ads before some of the YouTube videos he liked. And he would watch those ads and he would be very, very quick to just sort of say, I don't know, I don't understand. He's just trying to make people afraid. Why is this working? And I'm like, okay, kid, you are more politically astute than like most adults.
Yeah, no kidding.
So it's been fairly, not like easy is the wrong word, but there hasn't needed to be a lot of context setting to have those kinds of conversations.
Okay.
I remember I have had the how do you behave in front of cops conversation with him. And it's funny because it started because we went to go see To Kill a Mockingbird on Broadway.
Oh, nice. Gregory Peck
version with Jeff
Daniels. Jeff Daniels, yeah.
It's fantastic.
Oh.
On the train on the way back, he was sort of lamenting the unfairness of all of the things. And it's like, okay, we're doing this. And it's sort of, and he was not even a little bit surprised by that conversation. And thankfully, all of his interactions with law enforcement so far have been fairly positive. But he gets it. And I hate that he has to get it, but he gets it.
Yeah.
No, he's very curmudgeonly. I was going to say pessimistic, which is true, but it's also a little bit because even in the car yesterday, we went to get our flu shots and we were kind of like getting our flu shot at the CVS. So some people were wearing their masks all the way and some of them weren't wearing them necessarily. And he's just looking around and he's like, people are ruining the environment. Like there's barely going to be anyone here in a few years. Like he's like basically predicting the end of the world. And I'm like, I don't disagree with you on any particular point.
Right. But you can't give in. Like I worry about that all the time. I mean, both my kids, one just, I can't, by the way, my oldest just finished college. How crazy is that?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He just finished, at home, that sort of stuff. But my daughter is a sophomore in college. And we have these conversations all the time where, I worry about a lot of the youth are pessimistic as far as, well, what's going to really change? And God forbid November goes the way I know neither of us want it to go. I vividly remember waking up the morning after the last election and my daughter, being in high school at the time saying, wait, what do we do now? And I remember I didn't know what to say because I wasn't in a good mood either. And I said, your goal is in 4 years to have somebody you believe in to vote for. And now here we are 4 years later. It's not her first choice for sure, not even close. But I'm not even a praying man. I'm not a man of faith necessarily, but I am praying that we don't have to wake up and have that conversation that morning after, because I don't know how I will process it. If we, and I do worry about the youth and how do we keep them up, and it's one of those weird things where as a father, as a professor, as someone who, interacts with students all the time, I find it very challenging sometimes to say things are going to get better because when I don't know if they are,
I mean, I'll be perfectly frank. I've been going through a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy.
Okay.
And when you do that, some of the frameworks you start to think about are understanding spheres of control and understanding you can't control the outcome. Like you cannot guarantee that we're gonna wake up. If we actually know who won the day after election day, that alone I think will be a win.
Right? I don't think that.
I'm not even going to predict that, right?
No.
But understanding that, the question you have to ask yourself then is this. So cards on the table. I was big in it for Warren, and when she dropped out, I was like, "Fuck."
She's my senator. I love her.
Right?
I'm lucky.
But like my therapist was like, I get that, but you have to ask yourself, okay, even if she were to lose, how will you carry on what she stood for? And I'm like, oh, you're right, because there's a reason I wanted her to win. What is that reason, and what can I do about that reason? And you you reorient yourself to your values. And I feel like that's necessary because I don't know who's going to win, but I know I'm still going to be here and I'm still going to need to do things. Right. So I need to sort of keep my eye on that and have, a hope for this particular and do what I can to influence the outcome. But and honestly, as a Black man, that's how you have to live. Right? Like so to be perfectly honest, like there's a great skit that Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock were in, the Saturday Night Live that came out after the election. And it's a whole bunch of like white dudes in their apartment watching the election results come in and getting increasingly disappointed. And then Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock are saying in the back, like, I don't know why they're so surprised, like just laughing, just absolutely laughing, because like nary a Black person in this country was shocked by that outcome. And I feel like that was the first moment where liberals started to realize, oh yeah, we are living in two different Americas. And everything that's happened since, especially since George Floyd, has been an illustration of that. And to say, no, you really don't get how different these two Americas are. Let me show you.
Yeah.
Right. And so I don't know. I feel like but that reality is something that Black people have lived with since slavery. Right. And so understanding that, like, talk about the ultimate, you can't control the outcome. How do you live? That's it. Right. Yeah. Like it's what can I control? And, how can I carve out the best possible life here? And honestly, to me, that's the astonishing thing. The astonishing thing is that, like I was talking to my friend Michael Bryan about this the other day, I was sort of like talking about all the different ways that even if there hadn't been active enforcement of racism after slavery all on its own creates so much trauma and so much economic turmoil that the momentum of it would have still carried out till today. Like, how are we even alive right now? Right. But there is this resilience. I'm going to get a little lofty here, but there is a way in which the Black story is the most American story, because it is with the exception of, what happens to Native Americans, it is the story of the most resiliency you can imagine. Like, imagine a country that for 200 years has actively tried to exploit or kill you. And you don't leave. Like, that to me is the shocking thing, there's a story I didn't even know about, where Abraham Lincoln, when he does the Emancipation Proclamation, invites some of the leading Black abolitionists to the White House to say, hey, I'm going to do this thing. What do you think? His original plan was to free the slaves and then send them back to Africa. Because while he hated slavery, he didn't necessarily love Black people. Right, and he was really concerned about the notion of Black people and white people trying to live together in America. That was a non-starter for him. So I'm just trying to imagine the look on these Black abolitionist faces, right? To be a fly on that wall when they get invited by the president, and the president says, hey, I'm going to free the slaves. And they're like, yeah. And then he's like, I'm going to send them back to Africa. Interesting. Okay. And what that illustrates for me is that the reason it's so offensive for him to say, I'm going to send you back to Africa, is it presumes that that's their country. When in fact, at this point, after how many hundred years of slavery, this is the country those African Americans built. This is their country that they built. Mm-hmm. And you're being said, okay, thank you for your service. I'm sending you to a country that you now have lost connection with because of me, right? And that to me is the most fascinating thing about America, is like, there are groups in this country that America has treated horribly, and yet our reaction is to fight even harder to make it do the right thing. I still can't get my head completely around, but I know it's a real thing.
Well, I think yesterday I was watching, one of the great things about this whole scholar strike is, which by the way, if you haven't, anybody watching, the Scholar Strike YouTube channel has been mind-boggling to me. They asked professors from all over the country, all disciplines, to do 10-minute lectures, and only 10 minutes. So it's like really forced. And I watched this one yesterday. I remember the gentleman's name was Joshua, but I forget what I tweeted, but he's a Cherokee. And he was telling this story about, I had never heard this story about how Cherokee Nation had Black slaves, and how, right. I was like, what? And then and I'm sorry, I'm not, I only watched this literally last night, but he was telling about how the fact that, and when they freed them, they were accepted into Cherokee Nation as Cherokees, and they had a special name for them. But just like with the white man, the Cherokee Nation was like, no, they're different. They're not us. And it was like, literally like, it was one of those things where it was only 10 minutes. So, he really shared it, but I was like, well, I had never heard that story. And I think that's one of those things where when you talk about, where we live in a white focused society and white supremacy and everything, with the fact that that story doesn't get told and how much history doesn't get told. I mean, that's just one little story. And I was like, you reacted the same way I did. Are you kidding me? How is this not? And you telling me about, I had never heard about the send them back to Africa part, but yeah, I mean, there's so many pieces of our history that, the winners write the history. I've heard that saying a million times. And unfortunately, I've certainly learned, because I'm constantly learning new things too. It's just like, how the heck, how do we fix stuff if we don't start teaching the next generations the truth and all the truth? Because it's not an easy truth. It's a painful truth. I mean, I know so many people hate the phrase white privilege, but I know as a 40-something cis white male, I'm dripping in privilege. It's hard to say that. I mean, I've gotten comfortable enough with it to realize it, but that's a huge, we got to get over that hump. And I don't know how we do it, but it starts with the kids for sure. The next generations are going to fight for things that we never fought for, which I love. I love that.
Well, yeah. And the next generation, remember about the next generation. And this is not everybody, obviously, but I went to this panel. It was literally a Gen Z panel. It was like 3:30 panels just saying like AMA, right? And one of the things I noticed was they said something like, okay, people always ask us, what do we want to be when we grow up? And our answer is always, why do we have to wait till then? And then they put up a picture of Malala Yousafzai. And it's like, this is our hero, right? Someone who like at 14 is like already saying, okay, I'm gonna stir some stuff. Or Greta Thunberg, right? Like these are the people who are like, we don't have the luxury to wait because the stuff you're doing is gonna kill us when we're 20. So, so we are doing this now. I call them the not fucking around generation. So that to me, so when you ask sort of like, how do we fix it, or how do we to me, it's about how do we get out of the way?
Yeah, right.
Like, how do I make sure that you have everything you need to fix this? Because you're coming at it from this position of the first Black president is in my rearview mirror, right? You're starting with a different baseline of assumptions around what gender equality means, what marriage equality means. Like they had a category called why was this a thing, or why is this a thing? And one of them was marriage equality. Like literally, we don't get it. Why was this an issue?
Right.
Like, whereas even me being Generation X is like, well, I don't agree, but I totally get why people were all up in arms about, a man trying to marry a man. Whereas they're like, I like literally explain it to me. Like, I don't.
Yeah, trying to explain to kids, as a fellow Gen X, trying to explain to kids that Ellen saying she was gay on television was earth-shattering and career-ending. They're like, wait, Ellen? She wasn't out? Because it is weird. Those little, we remember back. I always try to explain to my kids, where I'm like, no, you don't understand that. Whatever topic it is, that didn't happen. That you just didn't do that. It wasn't and it's hard to wrap. They're like, what do you mean? Well, it's just like trying to explain that they didn't have the internet. We didn't have the internet either.
Yeah. And so basically starting from a different baseline, what can you accomplish?
Yeah.
Right. And starting with a different sense of urgency, what can you accomplish? And again, I'm not going to say this is all Gen Zers, but there is a category that just didn't exist for us. Because we didn't have that urgency, and we were much more in the mindset of, we were still, the other thing, honestly, that is definitely worth talking about is the economics of it all. So I've noticed that in the past 10, 20 years, especially in the past 10 years, the idea of openly questioning capitalism is on the table in a way that it was never, right? When we were growing up, you didn't question capitalism because the alternative was communism, and the communists wanted to blow us up with a bomb.
Yep.
So it was just a given. Whereas now, the difference, I think, is starting with the millennials and in continuing with Gen Z, you had the first generation of white people who were making less money than their parents did.
Yep.
Black people are used to losing wealth from the jump, but white families, middle-class families, losing wealth, that never happened. Never, not since the baby boomers became the baby boomers. So that then put them in a position of like, well, what's capitalism done for me lately?
Yeah.
Why should I unquestioningly follow it? Whereas the parents' generation is like, well, of course, capitalism. I have a house. Why would I question capitalism? The way I like to put it is that like the 1% forgot to bribe the rest.
Well, Well, it's like
And
the other day I literally the other day, so I teach a fundamentals of business class. It's like business 101. And I taught capitalism the other day, quite literally on the other day. And I tried getting the students to talk about, is this good, is this bad? And I always teach it from the aspect of, this is what capitalism is in its purest form. Because like everything else in its purest form, it sounds great. Own property, da-da-da. But is it the right way? And it's funny because I look at it as, when I taught business last spring, spring of 2020, January, before COVID, when I taught it this summer and had 2 young gentlemen from Somalia in my class, and then teaching it this fall, it's changed and people's perceptions have changed, and it's a good thing it's changed. I mean, we got so much further to go, but so what advice? I would like to know, I can see some of the students that are on here and I know who they are. What business advice would you give to any student, regardless of color, but, what sort of advice would you give them if they have a dream of starting their own business or doing their own, because you're, I would classify you as a self-made man. Like me, you've had many different hats through the years and done different things, but what's the reality for someone coming up wanting to start a business or do their own thing, whatever it is? What advice would you give them?
It's funny. The first thing that comes to mind is a little book that a friend of mine came up with that literally launched the day after my book, called Tiny MBA.
Okay.
And it is, Alex Hillman wrote this amazing book that is very practical life advice / business advice. That
I didn't know Alex wrote that.
Oh yeah, it just
cool.
I'm gonna send you a link and you can forward it to your students. But it really is this very like, I think the advice I would give is really have as clear an understanding as possible of what your goal is, because it is very easy, especially in this day and age, to fall into the trap of, my goal is to make a thing that I can sell to VC for 10x.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you are no longer serving your customer, you were serving your backer. And most of the sins of the corporate sins, of the racial sins, very often find their way back to some kind of profit motive, where as soon as my goal is to make money and not to make something of value, I am put in a position where I am going to hurt someone, where it is going to be more profitable for me to put something harmful out in the world than it is for me to put something useful in the world. Like the second money becomes the priority, that becomes a choice, right? So was it Volvo, or it was Volkswagen, I think, like had their whole emissions thing where they like cheated.
Volkswagen,
Volkswagen cheats on their emissions. Why? Like, did they wake up one morning saying, "Oh, it'd be fun to like create a complicated algorithm to cheat on my emissions test"? No, your money.
Yeah.
Like, if profit is not the motive, if the motive is create a car that is safe and safe for the environment, safe for people, you never do that. If on the other side, but we could make a lot of money if we didn't do that. Okay, all of a sudden I have a reason to do the wrong thing. Weirdly, I don't want to say this as an absolute, but weirdly, money surprisingly often gives you a reason to do the wrong thing.
Yeah, it
does. Another example, slavery, much cheaper to not pay people to work. Native American genocide, much cheaper to steal land than to pay for it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, but if you look at history's atrocities, you almost always find some kind of economic motive. I mean, not divorced from cultural context, but so that's the advice I would give, is like, have a very clear understanding of what your goal is and act from your values, because you can find yourself self-sabotaging anyway. Like, even if your goal is profit and you end up taking on this VC money, understand that venture capitalist probably has 10 other bets they've lined up, of which you are one. And it's honestly not the end of the, by definition, it's not the end of the day for them if your business fails.
Yeah.
Right?
We have one of the cornerstones of Wheaton's business is social good, social entrepreneurship, where it's not only about profit. And it's a tough thing to teach some students, because, they've been drilled in their heads for too long that it's all about the money. And yes, you have to make money. Money isn't necessarily evil. We all have to pay for our food and house and all that sort of thing, but if it doesn't have to be the driving factor. And the other day I had a student, he came to me, we were just catching up. We hadn't seen each other this semester. And he said, "Prof, something you said 2 years ago finally made sense to me." And I go, "Uh-oh, what did I say?" And what he said, and it made me, he said, "You told me to stop chasing the money, and I finally got what you meant." he literally was talking about how he came to school and was majoring in computer science, because he knew he could get a high paying job and probably build something and sell it for $1 million. But then he realized, well, that's not going to make me happy. I don't really like programming. So he started playing around with film, and he's doing film too. But now he's thinking maybe he wants to teach, because he realizes how much he loves that. But he's realizing he's not going to make a lot of money teaching. And I go, you're figuring it out. And it's better to figure it out now than down the road when, and it's a hard thing, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. All of us at that age, when we were in college, most people go to college because the hope of having a career, having a job that pays well, that's one of the motivating factors, right? But I made my day that I was like, he took it to heart finally and got it.
Yeah. And you have to understand, what is the purpose of the money? It's like if someone comes to me and says, okay, why do you want to get into business? To make money. And then what?
Yeah.
What are you going to do with that money, right?
Yeah.
And if you think of business as a tool to make people's lives better, that's different than thinking of business as a tool to make your life better. I mean, those are two fundamentally different ways of approaching business.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, I'm like, if I was only driven by money, I would not be teaching, right? I mean, I could go down to Boston and work at any of the ad agencies tomorrow in easily, I mean, I don't even want to do the math because it'll make me cry, easily easily make 3 times as much money without blinking, but at the end of the day, I would hate it. I would be commuting, and I wouldn't see my kids and my wife. I mean, there's other things besides, but that's a hard lesson to learn too, for sure.
Yeah. And I can't tell you how many times in my career I've moved from, I've taken a pay cut to work someplace that I knew would make me happier.
Right. And I'm sure some people are hearing that, right? Like students are like, what? You did what? But it is, and it's not easy, right? I mean, having a spouse that's helpful and supportive. I mean, I always say, if it wasn't for my wife, I wouldn't be able to do half the things I do, because she supports happiness over, we'll figure it out. That's one of her famous phrases, we'll figure it out,
Yeah. And it's the exact same situation. Like my wife has a very good paying job that she loves.
Yeah.
So that affords me the luxury of being able to be more flexible with what jobs I take and don't take, and how often I work.
Wait a minute, you're okay being a man making less than a woman?
See, this is what I'm talking about, right? And it's these cultural obsessions. Like honestly, the obsession with money is not a survival instinct, so to speak, right? It is a culturally, once you reach over a certain level of like, I can put dinner on the table, it is a like culturally mandated, okay, you are not a man unless, you are not an American unless, you are not whatever unless you've like, my Alex calls this entreporn, right? It's like, we celebrate, like pay attention to what gets celebrated. We celebrate with big headlines. This company went public. This company sold to this, or this company is taking its class A, whatever, right? Like we celebrate that. And I'm like, should we though?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good thing, but it should be it's also like the hustle porn, work 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
No, that's not healthy for anybody. It's ridiculous. No, and I made that joke, by the way, because I made that joke because I know I make less than my wife, and I have no issue with it. But I know a lot of guys would be hung up because, like you said, I like the entrepreneur. That's it. It's true, right? You must, it's crazy. So much messed up in this world.
And it's a lifestyle thing. And the other thing I want to like really deconstruct is the self-made man myth, right? Like it is a very destructive narrative. It's great for biopics. It's horrible for real life.
Yeah.
Because in real life, people had help. People had 2 kinds of help. They had the help of other people in their lives who believed in them and sacrificed for them and gave them opportunities, right? Either people who were, at a lower station or higher station in life than them, but were still like making room for them. And then they also had luck.
Yeah.
Right. They had the luck to be born of a certain socioeconomic status or race or gender that the society they lived in valued more and would be more willing to listen to and more willing to take a meeting with.
Yeah.
And had certain educational opportunities. I mean, honestly, if you really look at the numbers, a lot of that stuff gets decided in 3rd grade if you are a boy and in 8th grade if you're a woman.
Yeah.
Like if you want to talk about when people drop out of STEM, for women, it's usually around 8th grade. For little black boys, if by 3rd or 4th grade that stuff isn't locked down, it's over, right? So like, and how much control do you have over that, right? If you go back and you look back on your career and you're like, well, I was very smart to be born white and in 3rd grade stick with STEM. Like, no, you weren't.
No,
You
yeah.
didn't choose that.
Nope.
You know?
But it's true. It's funny you mentioned third grade, because third grade's when I first touched the computer, and I touched the computer, and then fifth grade, I had a teacher who I will always thankful, who said, here's this crazy and rambunctious young kid. Let's put him on theater. Let's put him on stage. And I'm thankful for her, because she opened a whole new world to me.
Yeah. Now, what I will give people credit for, like, basically this goes back to when people ask me my origin story, like, what do I credit?
Dave, what does your camera have a focus on it, or focus ring?
Oh, you know what? It does sometimes go out.
It just went all of a sudden you went nice soft. I was like, whoa, what happened? Yeah. There we go.
We're doing a flashback now. So when people like ask me, like, what do I credit my success? I always talk about like luck and persistence, right? There's the luck of meeting the people that I met and of being born into the privilege that I have. Like, I am a Black man, but I am a man, right? And persistence. Like, the thing I will give people credit for is persistence, right? So I never shut up about cognitive bias. Every single day I looked up a new one. Yeah. Like, to the point where people were like, please just get a podcast. And I did that podcast pretty much every week, with little breaks for 100 episodes. Like, I just kept at it and kept at it and kept at it. Now, that wasn't a hardship for me. Like, I enjoyed that, but it was work. And even now, like, I'm going on promoting the book and like sending out messages, 1,000 individual messages to LinkedIn people I know, right? Like, and that's hours and hours and hours and hours. And I'm thankful for that. But it is persistent. So I'm not saying that humans have no agency in their success. I'm saying that it's maybe 30% of what they say it is.
Yeah. So, okay, let's, we got a few minutes left here. Again, if you have questions, click on the Q&A down at the bottom. Seeing some of the people who are in this room, I'm dying for them to ask questions, because I know they probably have, like, I can see a couple of my, like, I should never say favorite students, but some of them, but we all, students who I, have better relations, I'm shocked they haven't asked any questions yet. But I guess, so how do we, here's the big question, and I will be the stupid white man asking this question, but because I want to hear your opinion. How are we going to fix things? Like, where do we start? I mean, I know that's a massive question, but I mean, I
have an answer.
I know you do. I'm convinced.
Throw money at it. Like, seriously, I think if I had to pick one like little tweak to do,
okay,
just to see what happens, right? I would say every company on earth pays every American company, actually, every company in a white supremacist society, I'll put it that way, pay your female and people of color and transgender and employees twice what everyone else gets paid for 1 year. Like, shift economic power for 1 year in a meaningful way and see what happens. Because at the end of the day, that tends to be what moves the needle, right? It's not a coincidence that you have white supremacy and white people on the whole having far more wealth than Black people, right? Or men on the whole having far more wealth than women.
Right.
What if that weren't the case? Let's just see what happens, right?
that would be the grand experiment, man. Yeah, that would be epic.
And that wouldn't require a legal change, right? If you just wave a magic wand and make that happen, but it would result in legal changes, right? You don't get Citizens United unless you have a lot of money invested in making Citizens United happen.
God, right? I want that gone. Oh.
Right? So to me, like, if I had to just wave a magic wand, make one thing happen, it's like, so what are the equivalents of that in the short term? Supporting Black businesses. Go to rebuildblackbusiness.com and you'll see literally 14,000 options to do that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Again, I'll send you a whole list of links after this is over, and you can just forward them to your students.
Yeah.
But so Rebuild Black Business, there's that. But think about the economic factors, because to me, those are the ones that end up pushing forward everything else, or on the reverse side of it being the barrier to everything else. Because you look at the business world. How much venture capital goes towards women or people of color? How many bank loans go towards women or people of color, right? How is follow the money? Yeah. How is the money moving through that ecosystem? Shift that, right? And then see how all of a sudden there's so much more Black wealth, right?
Yeah. So here we got a student question. Yeah, from Tessa. For the last 200 years, Black people were fighting for equality, whereas white people were building equity. How can we even begin to resolve such disparity?
Again, throw money at it. No, right, but that's, I mean, and I want to sort of like, we weren't fighting for equity, we were fighting for our lives. Like that actually is the problem. Or even equality. We were fighting for our lives.
True.
And even once we had that, we still didn't have it, right? So Martin Luther King comes in, civil rights movement happens, and we're able to get laws in the books that basically say, don't kill us. But somehow we still keep getting killed. Like if we can't even agree on Black Lives Matter, right? So unfortunately, living in a capitalist society where we equate money with value, one of the things that make us valuable is if we actually have wealth.
Yeah.
Like, I go back to like the reparations situation. Like people have been seriously talking about that's another big change, by the way, is that for the longest time, reparations was a political third rail. You didn't talk about that.
I know. And lately it's been coming up and like actually being discussed.
The set of candidates running for the Democratic seat, every single one, if they wanted to be taken seriously, had to have a position on reparations. That has never happened in American history, right? But I think part of the reason is this recognition that there is an economic debt and an economic power to be had by saying, okay, the way you get to equity is with wealth. Like that's just by definition.
Yeah.
So if you introduce, that's why I'm only half joking when I say pay Black people twice as much. And by the way, maybe give them 3 times the vote for a few years. Right.
I think it's a fascinating, I never heard anybody put it that bluntly, but wouldn't that be interesting?
Yeah. And it's, but that to me is how you move there. Cause the thing is, we've been in survival mode this whole time.
Yeah.
And the only way, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the only way to get out of survival mode is to actually have the, economic power. Actually, I can't even say it's that completely because wealthy Black people have been, shot by the cops too. Yeah. Like but economic power does result in political power, and political power does result in, okay, who actually gets to be the sheriff, right? Who actually gets to be the DA?
All right, I got another question from Angel. She said she's having a really good time. She's enjoying it, which is good. Glad to hear that, Angel. What do you think about the future of AI systems that match people's faces using public photos? How would you remove bias or make it not as bad / more ethical, knowing that these systems are already being used and sold, that we can't really go back and undo the technology?
One of the most significant outcomes of the Black Lives Matter movement of late has been IBM saying we are not going to do that anymore. And a couple other agencies at least saying we're not going to sell it to the cops. I think the most ethical use of that kind of technology is to correlate it with power. So for example, you do not use it against John Q. Citizen who set a cop car on fire and I'm going to match you using your Etsy thing. Like, no, I'm going to use it against cops. So I can know who stopped that person at that traffic stop or who like opened up tear gas on a person 5 feet in front of them, right? And who started beating a Navy SEAL, on camera, but I can, like, let's use it for that. So basically the more power you have, the more scrutiny you have, right? So the more you are, so if we're going to have a surveillance state, great, have it correlate to power. And the more powerful you are, the more you're surveilled. Like that to me is a more ethical use of that power than to say, oh, now that I have cameras everywhere, I can oppress you that much more.
But how's that going to work when it comes down to money? And like you said, at the end of the day, I mean, IBM or Google or, is it Microsoft just did Project Jedi for the Pentagon? I forget who got that contract. I mean, at the end of the day, these are massive multi-billion-dollar corporations. We like to, I love the fact that IBM has said we're not using it anymore. But at some point, the shareholders are going to be like, yeah, but we got this cool technology over here. It's that do no evil, but that Google used to say, but are they going to, it's tough.
Well, at the end of the day, we have to talk about regulation. Like you're not getting out of this without having fundamental systemic government change. So for example, I want to say Sweden, let's say Sweden, but somewhere like, so there's a ticketing system where the cameras, the surveillance, right, can tell if you're speeding. Okay. But the way that they dole out the punishment is this. Everybody is every driver is automatically entered into a lottery, but only the people who speed, right, are, I think, basically not eligible to win. So basically, it's incentivized so that if you make a lot of money, right, the way it works here, if you make a lot of money, you can speed all you want because you can afford the ticket. It's around you, right? But there, right, you are not incentivized to you gain no advantage, right? You only lose by speeding, and the money that you're collecting goes into a pool that other people are going to benefit from.
Oh,
So they basically flipped it. So same technology, right? It's still a camera watching whether or not you speed and gathering that data. But what do I do with the data? That's where it gets tricky. And the reason they're doing it that way is because they have a culture that doesn't necessarily believe that rich equals better.
Yeah. No, all Scandinavia's got it figured out. Like when I teach, it's always fascinating. One of my favorite things to teach, even though I'm not a scholar in it, is in the fundamentals level of teaching human resources. And when I explain, I always ask the students, so what benefits do you think you get at companies? And we start talking about, like paid leave and stuff for that. And when I explain who gets paid leave in America, who's protected to get paid leave, it always sparks a conversation. And I know a couple of years ago, I had a student from Sweden. Is she from Sweden or Finland? Now I feel bad that I'm blanking. But she was like, and I said, and tell me, because I know your country does it right. And she was explaining, oh, everybody gets 3 months. Men, women, doesn't matter if you're a parent. And when I explained to students that the mother who gives birth to a baby in America gets protected, but the key, give birth, same-sex partner, there's a million things. And it's always fascinating to watch students' eyes open up and be like, because up to this point they've had part-time jobs to realize that no, America, we don't do, we sell a really good product, but there's all kinds of things we're not doing right.
Well, and it's really, going back to history, it's really important to understand what is and is not endemically American, right? So even the notion of paid leave, even the notion of labor unions, right? Yeah. That originated here.
Yeah.
Other countries innovated on it and were frankly more committed to it. Even the notion of social mobility, even though we're screwing it up here, we innovated that and other countries took it and ran with it. So like the example I kind of want to end on, I know we're running out.
Yeah.
But the example I end on is this, right? So back in the day, you had anti-monopolistic laws, right? And so a company like A&P is a grocery store that's using competitive advantage to move into towns, undercut them, and then take over the business, right? And you had bank failures, right? You had big bank crashes like we had in 2008. And back in the day, sort of like New Deal era, those people went to jail and those banks got broken up, right? That is America. Now, fast forward to 2008 and, God love Obama, but when he is asked and the 2008 crisis, hey, why didn't you break up the banks? Why didn't anybody go to jail? He's like, well, that's just not how, because Iceland basically had done exactly that. And they're asking, why didn't you do the Iceland solution? And he's like, well, Iceland's a smaller country and that's just not our culture here. And it's like, but it is.
It should
be. But it is.
Yeah.
We did that. Now we moved away from it for reasons that are far too long to go into here. We moved away from that and we basically divorced social justice from finance. But there was a time when we understood those two things were the same thing. And if you didn't deal with finance, you were never going to get social justice. So yeah, it is actually very American to say, oh, we're going to break up a bank if it gets too big. Too big to fail is not an American concept, right? Or it's no more an American concept than, no, I don't care how big you are. You're going to fail if you screw up.
Yeah, that during this whole COVID thing, that's the one that kills me more than any. I mean, there's a million things that I'm angry about, but the fact that we, as a government, we came out to bail out things. We bailed out the airlines and restaurants, small businesses are. I saw a stat the other day that 20% of mass restaurants are going to permanently be gone forever in our state. And the fact that small businesses are the ones being hurt the worst and are not coming back and that we're not doing anything to help them just breaks my heart. I mean, there's a million other things wrong with this whole pandemic too, but that where you brought it up, just no, if an airline can't take care of themselves, let them fail. I'm okay with it. And yes, I know I feel bad for all the workers. There's no celebratory vibe for anything failing, but
there's no winners here.
no, but especially not right now. No, we got to do better. So listen, I know you got to go, Dave. I so appreciate your time. If students want to find out more about you, where's the easiest place for them to go find you online?
If you go to daviddylanthomas.com, you're going to see all of the things, including a link to my book. So just go there.
Yeah, buy the book. I bought it the other day because I know it just came out. I got to finish the book I'm reading first, and then I'm going to read yours. I'm excited, man. It's so good to see you. Hopefully we get to have donuts or a meal. Me, you, and Kevin sit down sometime or something, man.
Awesome.
All right, man. You take care and stay safe out there.
You too. Thanks.
All right, man. Take care. So we're gonna keep this rolling here. Dave's gonna jump off. We're gonna start up here in another 2 minutes when Lucretia joins. I thought it'd be fun to share. Oh, and there's my son. You gotta love it. I thought it'd be kind of fun just to share. If you haven't seen it yet, if you're looking for other content today, I definitely suggest the Scholar Strike YouTube page. They've got all these great videos from professors and instructors all around the country and Canada doing 10-minute talks. We even have Gabby Torres from here at Wheaton doing one, which I thought was fantastic. Last night I watched that. They're putting up new talks all throughout yesterday and today, these 10-minute lectures on a whole bunch of different topics. Check that out. Also, the hashtag Scholar Strike. There's been all kinds of things being shared. There's a lot of great content going on. Hey, students, thank you also for swinging by. I appreciate it. Seeing your names in class. I appreciate the questions. Lucretia Braxton's going to be up next in just a minute. I thought, while we're waiting, I thought I'd have some fun and give a little love to Wheaton real quick while we're waiting. So I'm going to play this video just for those people who are watching out on the YouTubes and the internets and all that fun stuff who may not know what Wheaton is. I thought I'd show this video really quickly to promote Wheaton.
Basically, just coming here for the first time, it was like new world.
To say, I don't know. I'm not exactly sure.
I think the point is to do these things, to come together, to encourage ourselves, despite and in fact because the work is so very hard to do.
Every day at Wheaton is different, but every day is different in a very beautiful way.
This is a wonderful, safe place to try things. College is an opportunity to reinvent yourself in a lot of different ways. It's really gaining those new connections and being like, hey, now I can think in a different way.
Here, great faculty, accomplished faculty, more accessible.
Professors really do
I unmuted myself there. I thought it'd be fun to share that with everybody while we were waiting for Lucretia to get here. Plus, I love that video made by a Wheaton student, Ben Danielson, one of our film and new media students. I had the pleasure of traveling to Mumbai last year with Ben. I love showing that video for anybody who might be watching. Lucretia, how are you? You're muted.
I am outstanding, my friend. How are you doing?
I'm much better now. Damn. I knew I was like
way too long since we saw each other last.
It's been so long.
So long. It's
So
like ridiculous how long it. I can't even guess. What has it been, like 4 years, if not more than that?
Like, was it Blistum? Was that the last time? I can't be. No, that's when we met. I was in Cincy for something. We had beers. I remember.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so maybe it has still been. You were speaking at something. So yeah, it's still been easily about a good 4+ years.
God, I miss you. It's funny. That's my best. We just finished. I finished talking to my buddy Dave, but I'm like, I haven't talked to Lou in so long. Like, not really long. Not really talk. So God, it's good to see you.
Oh, you too, friend.
Yeah. So cool. So hey everybody, here we are. We're gonna, as you learn, this is the way things happen. Let me give the proper introduction here, because while I call her Lou, she is a bunch of different things. Lucretia Braxton is an award-winning photographer and digital marketing and content strategist. She was named one of Adweek's brand's Stars of Cincinnati in 2019 for being a brand leader, exemplifying the city's growth, evolution, and commitment to progress. In 2018, she was honored by TEDx Cincinnati Women as one of their extraordinary honorees for her accomplishments in the community, as well as her unique personal achievements. Lucretia is the city champion for Together Digital Cincinnati, an association dedicated to accelerating the advancement and growth of women in digital fields. She represents almost 200 women in the Cincinnati area who are digital strategists, marketers, founders, and entrepreneurs. She also just happens to run, which I feel bad because I did not know this was her account until last night, an Instagram account called Soul Sister Plants, where she helps her friends and community not kill their plants. Yeah, true story. I'd seen you tag that. I'd seen you use it on Instagram, and I thought it was like something you were doing, like a brand activation or something. And then I read your bio last night, and I go, oh crap, that's her. So I instantly had to show it to my daughter, who is a plant fanatic, and she's like, oh, she's got this plant, she's got that plant. Oh no, I know, I know you have a pothos behind you. It looks like I know that from my daughter.
Oh yeah, pothos. I've got a ZZ plant here.
Yeah,
there's a monstera. Those are just clippings that somebody gave me from like a 25-year-old plant. But yeah, lots of pothos. Hoyas are back behind me. Another ZZ plant I'm propagating. I've got snake plants are my favorite. So you don't see the 14 that are over there, and the additional 2 that are over here, with the majority of my plants are sitting over here to the side.
Yeah, my daughter just started, she's taking a semester off from school, and we happen to go to a hosta farm near us.
You got a whole hosta farm?
Oh yeah, they have 350 varieties.
Yes, they
and she works there now. She walked up in a sundress and sandals, and the guy, literally this old farmer dude, goes, your nails aren't going to survive. She goes, are you kidding me? These are a mess. And she's so happy. She comes home dirty smelling. She's been like pulling lilies. She loves it. I'm like, all right, kid. Yeah. So that's why I was like, wait, you and Lou would love each other.
Yes, I already love your baby anyways. I've been loving watching her evolution over the years. So this is great to see her coming into womanhood like she is.
Well, that's the thing. This is why I was so excited to have you, of all people. I mean, I was just like, when I was saying, like, who can I talk to? And I'm like, and it's funny because, like, you and Karen popped up at the top list. Karen's too busy because she's a busy woman, but you were free. And I was like, I'm going to have one of the most strongest Black women I know. And she's an entrepreneur. She's an artist. And like, it's funny because I'm so happy. Like, I'm looking at the list of students who are still here. And like, one of them out there, I'm like, I know she's going to, I was like, no, of all the people, this student needs to meet Lou. And so I'm excited. So for everybody watching, if you're on the Zoom Q&A, down the bottom, there's a Q&A button. If you click on that, you can type in a question and I will see it and I will ask it. Please, anytime you get it. Otherwise, Lou and I are just going to roll on through, and please chime in. I know people are watching this streaming on YouTube. I can't see that because I'm paying attention to Lou. But if you have questions, for those of you who are here at any point, type it in the Q&A and I will ask it. So how are you doing? Definitely. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm really doing good. Yeah, I worked out this morning, so that's setting my tone for my day. So if I'm not working out in the gym, then I would have gone to the park and went and skated for a little bit.
Yeah, roller dirt. What's going on?
Yeah, so I decided that. My friend owns the Cincinnati Roller Girls team here in Cincinnati, and she used to be was she a jammer? I think she used to be a jammer for the team, and she ended up buying the team. And she has been trying to get me to try out forever. And I was like, Lauren, I ain't been on skates on purpose in years. But I remember that you don't forget how to do things when you were a child. You really don't forget. And I was, I used to roller skate like daily when I was a teenager. Easily, daily. It was nothing. You were either at the movie theater or you were roller skating. It was one or the other. So there are certain things that have come back to me, but then it's a different world with the derby people. We haven't been doing any hitting or collisions right now because of COVID. So me just trying to get some of the basics and everything down has been hilarious. Learning from that perspective, but it has also been really fun to meet some new people and just do something else that I just love and keeping my body active. So that's really important right now.
Do you have a roller name yet?
I do have a name picked out if I do
Good.
make the team.
All right, cool. It's gonna be badass, I'm sure, knowing you.
Of course. The funny thing is that it's an old CB name that I used to have back in high school.
Wait.
And
You were on the CB. What do you mean by CB?
see, yeah,
You mean-
what's your 20?
Really?
Yeah, so that's what some of the boys had was in their cars, they had CBs. So
Yeah.
we had a snow day here in Cincinnati that came out of the blue, but it was an ice storm, so we had no school that day. And some people went out and it was like somebody be like, so who's what's the load you're carrying? And meaning who are the people in the car?
Yeah.
And somebody was like, no, you never say your name. You have to have a handle.
Yeah.
And so my handle was going to be what my DJ name would
Okay.
have been, which is Lady Devastator. So yes. So that would be my derby name.
Damn. I like it. It's funny. Half these kids who are listening right now are like, what the hell's a CB? My handle was freeze frame back in the day on my CB.
That is awesome. I freaking love that. That fits you perfectly too.
Thank you. It wasn't, I haven't thought about CBs in years. Man, we're old.
Yeah.
Lou, we're old.
We're not old. We are just people who have experience that people wish they had.
Amen.
Because I tell you, hindsight's 2020. If I could tell myself stuff that I know now, have the knowledge I have now, back in my early 20s, but I have no idea where my life would be. I have no regrets, but I just think about how things would have been enhanced because you're not insecure about who you are. You listen to yourself more than you listen to what other people say. And you also realize that you can tell somebody to completely, it's 11/11, everyone. You should make a wish.
Make a wish.
All right, got it. Good. Yes, I had cut the phone off, but I forgot that chimes through every single time. And I stop people. I'm like, it's 11/11. You should make a wish.
Nice.
What? So I forgot what I was talking about because that it's just
if you had known in your 20s what you know now.
Oh yeah, the things I would have done differently, but also just having that confidence in yourself. My confidence would have probably been next level if I had this knowledge back in my early 20s. Hell, even back in your teenage years, where you just remind yourself there's stuff that you worry about as a teenager, in your 20s, even in your 30s, that it's just does not gonna matter later on.
So so we've got a room full of late teen, early 20. I mean, what advice as a successful Black woman would you give these students? And I know these students. I've got every background imaginable here.
Yes.
What advice would you give them?
I would fully do only what you love, period. So if you're in school right now because you're doing it for your parents, it is not sustainable. You will not be happy. And you'll go on ahead and you'll get that degree and you'll get this education and you did that for somebody else and not yourself. And you will struggle trying to find where you fit because you're doing something that was never meant for you in the first place. But if you've got that pulling, that calls, something that just keeps calling and pulling at you, pursue it. Go after it. That don't mean I'm not telling you go and drop out of school tomorrow and say, I'm done. If you have no plan, you are done. You have no plan. So at least, pursue what makes you happy while you're also pursuing what's going to make you your money for right now. And biggest advice I wish somebody had given me was to have multiple income streams.
Right. Yeah, which we get that nowadays, but it's one of those things that I know coming up was never, talked about. The fact that, having multiple income streams just wasn't talked about.
No, not at all. Because what was talked about was you go to school, you get a good education, you get the great job, you work there for 25, 30 years, you retire, you get your gold watch or whatever, and then you go and live out your retirement happy. That is a lie from the depths of hell.
Yeah.
That hasn't existed for us in this country, this world, for a long time. And unfortunately, a lot of people are still going to college thinking They're going to get that one amazing job. Y'all, I have had easily 10 plus different types of jobs in some way through no fault of my own in saying, okay, well, you're just terrible at the job. No, sometimes companies change, priorities change, and you have to be a person who can pivot.
Yeah.
If you can't adjust to change, if you resist change, you are going to struggle just in life in general, because the one thing you can count on in life is for change. It is the one consistent thing that we know is going to always be around is change.
Yeah,
and if you can't adjust to that, you're going to struggle.
Yeah, and I don't think enough, even adults, not just students. I mean, but enough people don't realize that. I mean, we assume we work hard, we're loyal to the company's going to be loyal to us, and I don't care who you are. That ain't the truth. I know you've run into that. I've run into that.
Company is loyal to itself.
Right.
HR is for the company. HR is not for you. And I have always told people, when you go into a job, it isn't just them interviewing you. You need to come correct with some questions and a notebook full of stuff, asking them questions, because you want to know, is that a good fit for you? A lot of times, and I have been, and you do not have to sit through an entire interview when you already know this is not going to work for me. I have been 10 minutes into an interview and I said, you know, respectfully, this is not going to be a fit. And you are looking for somebody who has this very specific skill set, who can do these very specific things. And I can do all of that, but I can tell you, I'm not going to be happy.
Yeah.
Because you need a person, I said, who is tactical, not a person who's strategic, and I'm strategic. That's also important too, is to know, are you a tactical person, which means somebody tells you what to do and you just do it? Or are you a person who visions? I'm a visionary. So I see, you tell me, here's your problem, and I'm already tickering in my head how to solve it. Who do I know that I can contact who knows this and that? Networking is also huge. That is nowhere near are we ever told how important that is.
Right. And the fact that it's not just a buzzword. Like, I hate like networking. You got to network.
Oh, you got to network. What is that?
It's about relationships.
I hate that bull crap. I hate it when people are like, well, my network is, you see my LinkedIn network of people. I've got so many people following me. How many of those people do you actually talk to?
Right.
When do you talk to them? See, I pay attention to the ones who, are you trying to nurture a relationship with me? So that's how I see networking, is I'm building relationships with people. I'm trying to cultivate, like, okay, and I like to cultivate relationships with people who know a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I have that one friend, her name is Karen. Karen is a person who knows a lot of people, who knows a lot of people. It's like, I can mention something. She's like, oh, you need to meet so-and-so. Oh, you need to meet a connector. That's what you want. And I find myself being more of a connector because I paid attention to cultivating my network of people. And so when someone's like, hey, I need this, and I'm like, I know exactly who you need to talk to.
Well, it's like this. So I had someone the other day, I had a fellow professor said, hey, how'd you find these great entrepreneurs? I'm like, they're all friends. You know, I'm like, well, where'd you meet? Because I said, like, when I sent this out to Wheaton internally, you know, I put where you guys were all from. They're like, you know, I've got Philly, Detroit, and Cincinnati. They're like, wait, how do you know all these people? I'm like, years of just crossing paths at a conference and being like, hey, we're kindred spirits, getting to know each other. That's what it's really. And you never know when you're standing next to somebody who they are, you know, or, you know.
Yes. And it's so, we seem to be, it's so easy now to just be standing somewhere, and we don't know how to be idle anymore.
Yeah, we don't.
And so if we're standing somewhere, this is usually something just like this. It's like, oh God, they're looking at me. Let me act like I'm, no. And I say this to you because I can see me. So look at me.
Yeah, I know, right? It's weird.
Put the freaking phone down. And be open to just looking somebody in their eyeballs and saying hello. And if you're afraid to look people in their eyes, I was always told to look here. And so even when I'm speaking, I will look at the eyebrows sometimes, because I'll catch myself not looking at people and I'm like, okay, that's disconnecting. So it's just little things like that to just nurture those relationships and just to build. But I'll tell y'all how I met CC. CC was speaking I had seen him on Twitter, when Twitter was where people actually had conversations instead of yelling at each other in capital letters, where we used to actually talk to each other. And so I knew that he was speaking at the Blissdom conference, and I was like, he's the one person that I need to meet. And I knew that. Didn't know why, just knew that he was my person that I was going to meet at the conference that year. And he happened to be in the Shot at Life room along with a couple of other friends who I also had been on my people to meet at that conference list. And we met, and I think I even told him that I said, you were the person that I knew I had to meet. Didn't know why. And we've run in similar circles, been involved, realized we both have a passion for philanthropic causes and just, people in general, women, and had just a deep appreciation for that. And then Cece just, y'all are his students. I mean, you guys know he's just amazing because he just gives it to you straight, and you know that you're going to get great information. And so that has always been just amazing to me. So I'm
and that was a great conference. For those, I always love telling stories at that conference because there was like 1,000 women. It's like a women's empowerment conference, and then there was 4 of us guys. That were speakers, and it was a blast. It was so much fun.
They brought in quality men for that. Men who were strong enough to be able to stand there and not be like, they have to flex the whole time. It's like, man here, man speaking here.
Yeah, women. No, there was no flexing going on.
There was no flexing, but it was great how humble each of you were every time any of the women, because most of you, I think, were writers. Yeah. And most of us had read your books in some way. So it was so great to have just such humble men there also saying, instead of speaking at us, speaking to us and saying, listen, here's what I've been doing and here's what you can do. And it's like, but you're a man. It's like, and.
So let's talk about, enough about me. Let's talk about you, because I got a question. For you.
Yes, I'm ready.
All right. Tell us about what she does, how her photography, we want to hear more about your photography, art, and your website. And, how are some of the multiple streams of income that you have? And what is your advice for someone who wants to start a nonprofit, if you have any advice on that?
Ooh, wow.
Whole bunch of.
So what do? I tell people that I'm a walking advertising agency. I've held every position in a marketing department in some type of way: writing, designing, strategy, traffic management, account management, client management, project management, just of a team as a whole. And currently I am actually consulting with a nonprofit right now that is helping to get the word out about voting. It's hilarious to me how my life has intersected with certain things, because I would have never thought I would have gotten into politics in any way, but it's here I am, helping people out, managing a digital strategy component of it, working with influencers to help just get the word out to not necessarily the people who are going to vote, but the people who are thinking that their vote doesn't count. So talking about why that's important. And I have the photography. Photography is something I got into because I was bored at a job. I was doing graphic design. I've been doing it for years, had been working at a nonprofit in the design department. It was just me and my manager. We were at the design department, and I was bored. I think I had my son by then, so I had 3 kids, and I felt like all I was a wife and a mother, and I came to work. That's it. What else did I do? I didn't draw anymore. I wasn't doing my art anymore, and found a photography class and said, oh, okay, I'll go shoot with some film photography. I'll go do that for a little bit. So started there with digital, went and got into shooting with film, developing film. And then the photography just took off with opportunities to be in some different groups when Samsung created probably one of the baddest ass cameras ever, and then shut down their camera division. That was so freaking stupid, but I digress.
You're right. I was part of that program too, and there was a mess. Oh man.
No, it was a mess, but that camera, it's still to this day, still one of the baddest cameras out there. And so the photography for me was an income stream for a little while, but then I would find that everyone was always trying to undercut what I was trying to do. And it got really old really quick, trying to constantly have to prove that I was worth what I was asking for. So if I didn't have a full-time job, I always have had some type of side hustle. And so for me, that new latest side hustle was watercolor painting, which I was never able to master watercolor in high school. Is that the print? Yeah. Yes. Yes.
That's one of hers that I bought.
Yes. And I was never able to master watercolor for nothing. And then picked it up when I had lost a job because I needed something to do to stop me from thinking about how much I hated the people who lied to me about the job that I lost, even though they worked me like a dog through December, then let me go in January. But again, this is why you have to always remember that you are the CEO of you. Period. Period. You are paid for a certain skill set. You are not selling your soul to a company, because when they don't need you anymore, it's just business when they let you go. It's always just business. So, but you are not just a business, you're a person. And if you have a spouse or children, or now, honestly, if we're really looking at how our society is set up, parents that you may be taking care of, siblings you may be taking care of, it matters, you know? So it's not, you're not just business. So for me, I always knew that even as a Black woman, it was never going to be good enough for me to be good enough. I can never be a C student. I can never be a C employee. I have to be the A+ employee who also gets the bonus points. So I had to be 195% better than everybody else because of the automatic 2 strikes. I'm a woman and I'm Black, and all the stereotypes that come with being a Black woman. So I walk into many situations sometimes automatically at a negative because that is because of people's perceptions of what they think they know about me. So I always knew that I needed to, so I went to school for graphic design, but I knew that was not going to be enough. So I also minored in marketing. I took so many marketing classes, I honestly probably could have double majored because I knew where a design position would fall in a company. But then as I was doing that, I didn't always want to be somebody's designer. And and then I was also would have been stuck designing crappy crap. So somebody else gets to design and then I have to go and fix the crappy crap. And I didn't want to do that. So I knew I needed to know how to write. I needed to know how to vision things out, to see what a client may ask for, and then how can I translate that. And as far as starting a nonprofit, I have not, but I would go to a nonprofit that you really admire, that's doing really well, and I would talk to you talk to the CEO, but talk to somebody who's in development. Talk to someone who really deals with the community that they're trying to support, to find out what is it that they're doing, how are they pivoting to meet that need. And then also, if you're looking to start a nonprofit, ask yourself why. Why do you really want to do it? Because that why has to sustain you when you're at the real shit portion of running, because it's still a business. Nonprofit does not mean no money. Nonprofit is so that you don't pay taxes in a certain way, but it is still a business. Therefore, you must still conduct yourself as a business. And also, you have to understand that if you're running a nonprofit, you are a professional beggar, which means that you need to know how to talk to people. You need to be a person who basically can stand in line and be like, hi, how are you doing? What you doing? Because you're looking to make a direct connection with someone who can help you out in some type of way with your nonprofit. So you are truly a person who needs to be a connector. If you are shy, you need to let that go and embrace just who you are, because you can't always be behind the scenes. If you're running a nonprofit, you are the nonprofit. You are the face of it. You're the one who has to be able to sell it. You're selling all the time. You need sales. If you go and talk to people who sell and who are great, a car salesman, they real good at that. Yeah. Go talk to them. Find out how do you do it? Watch how they work. Watch how they talk. Well, it's not manipulation, but how do they persuade people?
Yeah, sales is such a, like, I suck at it. I don't enjoy selling. I don't enjoy it. And that your advice is, I think, dead on too. Because if you can't sell, nonprofit's not where you want to be. You don't want to be running the nonprofit.
No, because you're always selling. And that's another thing too. Everybody in the nonprofit sells the nonprofit. Doesn't make it, you can't have the person who's like, well, I'm just the designer. You're the one who designs the materials that people look at to sell it. Oh, well, I'm just the person who works with the clients. You're the person who nurtures the relationships with the people that we hope to keep paying us money.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just a volunteer. You're the volunteer who makes people see why you're doing this for free. So everybody is a salesperson in a nonprofit. It's still a business. Mission driven,
yeah,
but still a business.
I got a question for you because I get up in front of class all the time, and it's always funny. I love the moment that I say, listen, as a proud feminist, and people, it's always great because I get the weirdest, I don't know who I get the weirdest looks from, the guys or the girls going, wait, a guy can be a feminist? Yes. Yeah. Yes, you can. But what I would love you to give, I would love you to drop some truth because I know you're all about that. How hard is it for a woman, and a Black woman especially, in the business world? How hard is it?
So you said feminist. I do not subscribe to traditional feminism. I don't consider myself, because I don't subscribe to white woman feminism, because feminism in its origins was not created or thought about with Black women in mind. Black women are pulled into the feminism circle of white women when they need the numbers. But we were never, ever really included in the first place because we're seen as less than them. So if I worked at a company where they had a t-shirt, loved the t-shirt, beautiful, soft t-shirt, had feminist over the front, and I never wore it because I worked at a company that was about women, that treated women like crap and treated Black women worse than the other women there. And I could not, in all consciousness, wear that shirt knowing that feminism was not meant for me. So, but I read a book recently called Hood Feminism that completely shifted my thinking about how we have all, even Black women, have fed into some of the stereotypes of what a woman is supposed to be, what a feminist is, and how the author's grandmother was a hardcore feminist, even though the movement didn't accept her. And so I tell people, I am highly pro-woman, highly pro-woman. I stand for women. I will do whatever I can to stand for women, but I am without a doubt, first and foremost, for Black women, because if I can't be for us, because so few people are for us, so few people will stand up for us. So I stand up for Black women more than I stand up for anything else. And I will speak on. I'm having trouble hearing you. Siri, nobody was talking to you. And I see even Siri listening. But I don't struggle with it because I'm very concrete in somebody prove me wrong about the way that feminism, and I say white feminism because that's what it is, how that has disproportionately treated women of color. And what does that really mean? Because I see so many women who they vote against their own interests. They don't, it's like, well, it doesn't affect me, then I'm fine. But you're not thinking about the collective, or that you may have a daughter one day, or that your daughter's daughters may have daughters. You have sisters, you have mothers. And so when I hear a man say that he is a feminist, and I know many men who say that, I look at their actions compared to their words. And if their actions follow their words, then I'm like, okay, that's a man who's down for women. That's a man who will do what he has to do to help elevate women. And I see it honestly sometimes, CC, I see it more in men than I do in women sometimes. And it's kind of sad, to see how women are still competing with each other for some men, jobs, prestige, or whatever it is, because I've actually had female managers where I've had to tell them, I don't want your job. I'm just trying to come here and do a great job and do what we got to do. That's it. I don't care. I don't want your job. No desire for it. And I've had to tell more than one or two white female managers that.
Wow.
just to get them off my back of this competing with me. And I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are we doing here? Are we a team or not? You lead the team, let's do what we got to do and just keep it moving. So it is, feminism has, that's a touchy one for me because I always have a whole lot to say about it. But
and you're right. There's been so many, like, I remember when I took my daughter to the Women's March after the election, and I warned her, I said, listen, like, I had to give her like a history lesson on feminism, because I told her, listen, as a white man at this event, there are going to be some people who are not happy on there. And she, you know, she was like, the naivety of youth was like, what do you mean? I go, the history, you know, as you know, I would have 10 years ago would have never said I'm a feminist, you know, because I'm pro-woman, and I'm, you know, I'm like, that word was not used that way. And it took a lot of, she was funny until we got there. And she saw some people like give me dirty looks. She's like, the hell is, I told you, I said, you didn't, you know, when we were growing up, no kid ever said, no boy ever said, because it meant a whole other thing. And I never thought about it from the black one. That's fat. I mean, obviously I know nothing about that. That's crazy.
Yeah. And it's because you see where people feel like, well, where do you really belong?
Yeah.
You know, so here you are at the march, taking your daughter, supporting your daughter, and they're looking at you instead of, how dare this cis white man be here?
Right.
How dare this man? How dare you? How dare you? And then, but you also have women who would look at a group of black women there like, well, why? You know, well, see, now we know that they're not working. They're not doing that. They're not, make it, you know, just the judgments of it. And it's sad. But at the same time, I'm like, you know what? I'm still going to be happy and glad. And I'm not going to let anybody take that away from me, because I know that when I say what I say, people know that I stand behind what I say and that I mean what I say, you know, and I've had like the majority of the women who are a part of Together Digital here in Cincinnati, most of our chapter is white, but they also know that I never sit and throw anything in their face. You know, they'll come like, I'm having this time. I'm like, do you not know who you are? You got promoted into that. They moved you into this. I said, why are you walking into a room playing small? And it's because I can't walk into a room and play small. Or if I have done that, CC, it's been for preserving a job so I can take care of my family.
Yeah.
So sometimes I've had to minimize who I am, what I do, try to fly under the radar, but still be excellent. Still got to be excellent. But it's like, well, let me just be right here so that no one will try to see me as a target for something when it goes wrong. But I have been let go from jobs when they needed to cut stuff and I knew I was going to be the one to lose my job. I knew it because it's like, well, I'm just seen as disposable and replaceable. Well, look, we did our quota thing. We had a black person. Now we don't need a black person. See, we can say, look, we were diverse. She's in pictures of things now.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not interested in being anybody's token.
So how do we get past that? How do we get past that where whether it's the you know, meeting the quota for the black person on the team or a woman on the team? I mean, you know, like, you know, it was one of those things where like I reached out like for this. I felt bad that it was 3 men and 1 woman that I got for this, but it was a matter of I sent it out to a whole bunch of people, you know, and that's who could respond. But at the end of the day, how do we fix? We have so many things to fix, but how do we, like in a business, how do we get past this so that, you know, women are paid equally? More diversity and inclusion too, not just hiring them, but actually getting them at the table. So
we talk about salary. That's what we do. We have men need to share what you freaking make. You need to share what you make. You need to flat out, if you know good and damn well, you are working at a company and you know, and you are a hiring manager and you know that the men on the team are making $10,000 to $15,000 more than the woman, you are complicit in that behavior. For you to not look at that woman and to say, you need to ask me about salaries. You aren't breaking any rules at the company. What you're doing is doing what you would want somebody to do for your daughter, mother, sister, grandmother, aunt, the women in your family. You think about every time, see, this is what ticks me off about people thinking that, well, that's not my problem. It is everybody's problem. How do you change the lack of diversity in companies and in your business? Stop opening your freaking business knowing good and damn well you have whitewashed your whole business and then having guilt over oh, I don't have any people of diverse people on my team. It's because you didn't think about it. It needs to be such a conscious thought, not just saying I'm hiring women, but I'm hiring, and not just saying I'm hiring, look at me, I've hired a Black and I've hired a Latino person. Have you hired anybody who you obviously know is in the LGBTQ community? Have you thought about that? If you truly want to be inclusive, you also have to be willing to be wrong.
Yeah.
And to be told that you're wrong, not to be so defensive about it, and to say, what can I do to make this better? Or what can I do to be more mindful? Because sometimes people are just about their business and not thinking about it.
Right. Yeah.
Not thinking about it. Because when a lot of stuff was going on with the Black Lives Matter movement a few months ago, had a woman reach out to me who's a photographer.
Okay.
And she reached out because I tend to be people's safe Black woman. And but I tell them, I'm not gonna lie.
Wait, you're the safe Black woman?
Oh yeah, because I'm nice.
Yeah, but for anybody, I could already see like half my students just went, "What the hell is he?" I mean, yeah, Lou and I are very close. But wait, you're also you may be the safe Black woman, but you're also the type of friend who will say exactly what you mean. A lot of people can't handle that. Forget color, race, gender; they just can't handle blunt honesty. So you're the safe Black woman friend.
I'm the person where they knew they had a question that if they went and asked it out in a public forum, that they would get dragged.
That's why they made the
They would come with the, can I ask this question that would probably offend most people of color and Black people? And who can I ask because it's killing me? And so this woman,
I get with you.
It was killing her that she saw businesses that had said they were making a conscious effort to work with more Black women and people of color as that's what they were going to do. She sends a message to me and says, well, shouldn't we be hiring people, based off of their character? I said, how you going to get to my character when you can't get past this? How are you going to do that? Then she wanted to appeal to me. Well, as a Christian, I said, again, how can you get past this to know that anybody's a Christian or anything else or what? Because you can't get past this. I said, but the privilege of you being in your white skin is that you get to move and do whatever you do. I said, but now I said, instead of you celebrating that the company wants to do a better job and realizes we have not been doing enough, you're mad because they might not work with you. So now I said, here is the problem with systemic racism is that now you're going to be pissed off at Black women because you're going to look at Black photography women differently because, well, she got the job over me. Her work isn't as good as mine. I said, but what you're also not thinking, as I said, is that you got a husband who has a very good job. You can play photographer. You don't have to do this.
Right.
Also, that 1 or 2 jobs that those women of color may have gotten from that vendor or that brand or whatever could be enough to feed their family, take care of their rent for a month or 2, while for you, it's just you wanting the prestige of working with the brand. I said, so you don't even see how systemic racism even runs through you asking me this question. And you thinking that it was okay to ask a Black woman to validate your bullshit.
Yeah.
And I said, and I'm sorry. I'm not okay. And I was so upset by what she was asking me. I decided not to hold anything in. So I was voice clipping her and I let her hear me cry about how it should not be this hard that all I want to do is freaking live.
Right.
But I can't do that without somebody making assumptions about me that are not true, or they get to know me and then I'm well, you're not like the rest of them. Who's the them? What you mean? What do you mean? Well, no, I don't. I get real dumb when someone wants to come at me dumb.
Isn't that the best approach? The throwback that I saw someone the other day talking about that this was focused on when men make sexual comments and they were saying, oh, I don't know what you mean. Playing dumb's always fun. I love when I had a acquaintance that you and I both know there's friends and there's acquaintances online.
Yes.
Went back when I forget what I shared and I said Black Lives Matter, and he goes, "Don't you mean two?" in the comments, and I go, "Sorry, what do you mean by that? I don't understand." And I knew damn straight what he meant, but and then like idiot boy just poured it out, and I go, "Wait, are you saying this?" And it was funny to watch, and I was just like, and then I just let because it was on Facebook and it was public, and I watched people pounce. And I was just like,
That's
playing dumb and letting them just out themselves is just
And if they're open to having a conversation about it, then I'm completely, you know, I will be more forgiving in someone learning and moving past a state of ignorance,
right,
and moving into now I know. And that's something I told her was I said, now that you know, you are no longer allowed to act like you didn't know. I said, you now must use the privilege of your white skin to go and help amplify people who, I said, listen, I can sit here and tell everybody the sky is blue, and they will argue me down and say, oh, no. See, you don't know what you're talking about. But let a white woman say the sky is blue. You're right. You're right. I said, there is power in your white skin. There is power in you being a woman. I said, so use that for good instead of you using this because now you're slightly jealous and envious of people who can't even get a leg in, might get a leg in. Yeah. I said, that should make you want to work with the company more than anything else. See you later, baby. I'll pick you up. All right. So you just, that's how we make things better. We talk about it. Yeah. And we be willing to have hard conversations and not getting offended when a Black person tells you, I am not the person for you to be talking with about this, because sometimes we are exhausted trying to explain our experiences to other people. And I flat out have had people tell me, well, you know, things wouldn't be so bad for Black people if you guys just wouldn't keep talking about it. I said, wow, must be nice to be a white dude sitting in your privilege right now, not having to worry about nothing, and that you can basically be mediocre and still get ahead.
Yeah.
I said, wow, you've got women struggling behind you, and you've got people of color struggling behind you, children, so on, so forth. Pick somebody who is not you. And I said, must be nice to be able to sit in that and to say, well, if you just wouldn't talk about it, go away. Okay, I've tried that. Guess what? It's still here. I'm still Black every day I get up. Every day I get up, I'm still a Black woman every day I get up.
Yeah, I had my world like opened. I mean, you know, working with students of every background and everything. But then last fall, I went to there's this great organization that I've learned about, the Posse Foundation, which we have way oversimplifying, but the concept is, oh, take this underserved youth, send him or her to Lily White College. They're still going to be a fish out of water. Send a posse of them 10 at a time to a school. They're going to have their group. I mean, I'm way oversimplifying the work they do, but they're fantastic. And I love it. I just have a student just go, that's me. I love the Posse Scholars. We have 10 of them come in every year. And I had the pleasure of going to this Posse Plus retreat last year. And, you know, it's a very open conversation, trusted sort of way. Yes. And there was a really rough conversation where it was like the circle of truth, I forget whatever they called it, but where all of a sudden these students who I knew and didn't know were sharing their really honest, heart-wrenching stories of racism they'd run into on campus. And we are an open, you know, we like to think of I think every campus likes to think of themselves that way, but we got stuff we got to fix too. Yeah. And just hearing these stories is I'm like, wait, I had that kid in my class and the story he's telling about something and it totally made me go, I have to, because I know as a white cis male, I'm dripping in privilege. I've got a lot of privilege. And if I can't use that privilege to help even a little bit, then what the hell's the point? And I know and I have to keep reminding myself that, you know, because I'm like you, I want to change the world, but it's tough where, you know, I'm like, I know things are not going to change overnight, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to do every little possible thing I can to help.
But sometimes it's that one conversation that can really make a change. And like you said, for you to go and hear stories directly from people. And so I shared a few stories with that woman and told her, here is how it is for me. And for her, I had no idea. I said, of course you didn't. You know, or for a friend who lives in Utah and came to me after yet another young Black boy had been shot. And every time that happens for me, that I think about my son, who's 17, taller than me, kindest young man you could think. Yet I know people look at him as a threat.
Yeah.
And so, you know, me telling my white friend, I said, how you don't have to have the talk with your 3 sons about coming home alive. I said, that's my talk to my son is, if this happens, here's what you do. I said, you know, you're going to be scared. And see, my son's natural thing is to put his hands in his pocket. I said, so this is something you're not going to be able to do that. I said, what you do is you have we have default language. It's my name. It's my parents' name. I'm really nervous right now. Can't remember the phone numbers, but my phone is in my pocket. Can I get the phone so you can call my parents? I am a minor. I shouldn't have to tell my son this, but I do. And I know good and damn well none of my white friends tell their sons that.
Never.
Not one.
I've never had to.
Not one.
Yeah.
Has ever told their sons what to do so they come home alive. Not one. Or that I shouldn't want to let my son go out with his friends because, oh God forbid, we have 3 young Black boys together who are laughing and giggling and talking about games who look like a threat to one white woman. It's all it freaking takes. That's it. And that's all it takes. And it's not okay that that's my experience. And so to have people try to dismiss that as you're just being dramatic.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I've never, yes, every parent worries when a kid goes out the door.
Yes.
But you're 100%. I can't understand even a little bit of the worry you must. I have one of my closest friends in the world, Black man. His wife is Native American. They have a son who is slightly autistic, and he is petrified.
Yes.
But this kid's the most loving kid in the world. He loves to hug. He loves to approach people, and he knows that's going to make him a target. And we talk about it all the time that I can't begin to imagine what that is like. And I know it's something every Black family everywhere in the world, especially in this country, especially today, faces. And I can't fathom what that must be like.
Yeah, it's not lovely. It's not lovely. And especially, you know, talking about your friend and his son being autistic. And I have friends whose children are autistic also. They're high functioning, but still they could have a moment that reverts them back. And is there going to be somebody there who understands that they are having a moment, or is it automatically we've got to shoot them and kill them because that's the only way to subdue somebody?
Yeah.
Only to find out later, oh, he was autistic. Oh, he's on the spectrum in some way, or he's just very anxious, or whatever the case may be. So we don't take that into account because, oh, he's automatically a threat. And that's not okay that anybody should have to worry about their kids like that.
All right. I have a question and I'm so glad she asked this because of all the students, I was like, this is one that Lou and Angel need to know each other. And by the way, I've already had a couple students ask me if they can connect with you after the fact. So
yes,
we'll definitely
please do.
we'll make that all happen.
Absolutely.
But Angel wants to know, how do you reconcile being a hyper visible minority dealing with other minorities when others are fighting against each other for spots, roles, and privilege?
Oh, so what I like to do is to remove that conflict immediately and to say, listen, we in this together. One of us gonna get, if I see another, and I've been at interviews before where sometimes you see the people stacked and it's like, one of us gonna get this job. Okay. One of us gonna get this job. We're in this together. And that's truly when it becomes a we're in this together, and being open to even connecting with that person so that you're not, because I want to look at your question again and make sure I'm answering it.
Oh, whoops.
We're not, the first thing to do is to remove we're fighting against each other, because we're not. And instead, one of the reasons why you'll hear me say that I'm a Black woman instead of saying I'm a person of color. And I will even correct people and say, call me a Black woman, because I'm not ashamed of that. And there are people of color who hate Black people. And there are people of color who are darker than me, who think that I am trash and garbage. And I'm fully aware of that. So what you have to do is, this is where you being so confident in who you are, it doesn't matter what anybody says to you, it cannot sway you in any type of way because you know who you are. And being able to also stand confidently in who you are to lift somebody else up. Because if they're coming at you in a way to where it feels like it's a competition, there's some insecurity in them. You are bringing out an insecurity in them. Doesn't mean you're doing it on purpose, but there's something about you that's making them feel uncomfortable. Therefore, they're feeling threatened. So what do you do when something's threatened you? You think about it with an animal. What do? You try to calm it in some way. So is there a common ground that you have with this person? Like I said, if I see another Black, and I was interviewing at a job where I knew that, okay, they're looking for a diversity hire. And so you see the woman. So instead of me giving her the look, I'm like, you look amazing in your outfit. I hope it went well for you. Did it go well for you? And so it takes them automatically, their defense comes down, because it's now like, yeah, it went pretty good. I'm like, how you feel about this place? How you feel about it? I think it's going to be okay. I said, all right, well, good luck to you. Best of luck in your hunt or whatever. That way you're bringing the defenses down, because we're all automatically going to feel like that. And also realizing you got to get rid of that scarcity mindset. There is enough for everybody. Maybe this job is not for you, but it could be for that person. But there's something else out there for you. Is there a way that you can connect with that person in some type of way? To me, that's how I try to remove any barriers or conflicts, or saying that, oh, I'm competing with another person of color for something.
Great answer. Of course, a great answer. And I'm glad Angel asked, because
Yes, thank you for that, Angel.
Angel's worked for me. She's amazing. Her name's Angel Bird. How killer of a name is that, right?
That name is everything. Your
right?
Parents love you.
And Angel, I'm sorry. I mean, Angel's worked for me as an intern and stuff. She's had me classes. Literally, you two remind me each other so much.
Oh, I love that.
So yeah, I mean, with this hour flew by, Lou. I could talk to you forever.
It always does, though, doesn't it?
I know. So one of the things I want to add, so these are, a lot of young business students, but also, it's a liberal arts school. There's people tuning in from all over. I mean, what are some of the skills you think that youth need in order to be successful in the world they're about to enter? And not just business, but just, what you already talked about sales. You already talked about, communication, but what other skills do you think they need, especially students of color, Black students, and all students, but what skills do you think they need?
Be forward thinking, vision out. So even though we're in the now, and every moment that we're doing right now is now literally becoming the past, vision out how you see things. Choose to be optimistic, even though some of the things around you may not seem that way. That's just temporary, but you can always think out something, and your words are so powerful. What you say, and so I tell my kids, what comes out of your mouth, you hear. What you hear, you think about. And then you think about it, it comes out your mouth again. I'm stupid. You just heard yourself say, I'm stupid. Now I think I'm stupid. I'm stupid. You hear what you say. So I tell people, break the cycle. Sometimes I'm like, so I don't hear what I say, because I believe 100% of what I say. So say good things to yourself. Be your biggest cheerleader. Pump yourself up. I will walk past a mirror and be like, girl, I see you. You are amazing. You look so good. You are everything. People wish they looked this good. You need to talk yourself up. Be your own hype squad. Also, be a person, have compassion. Be a person who develops compassion, really understanding what compassion and empathy are, so that even though you may not be able to relate to what someone is going through, you can at least feel or have an understanding that what they are saying is their truth. That will help you be a person who's not always a full-on rule follower, because you're like, okay, but the rules aren't the same for them. And here's the reason why. To have some compassion for a person in that type of way. Also to write.
Oh yeah.
Write. I cannot stress enough the importance of being able to express yourself. I always have a notebook close by. Always.
What's it say? Hand wash only?
It says hand wash only, do not machine wash. It's because it's jean material. It's so, Moleskine sometimes will have little special ones. And I was like, is that jeans?
That's cool.
I'm like, what? So, right. And Write every day if you can. It doesn't have to be long, but it's just enough for you to get to the point of being able to express yourself. And that's really important to me. To write, be able to write so that you can verbalize what you're trying to say. Those are some great skills: compassion, empathy, write, and also just being super ultra confident in who you are. I wish somebody had told me that when I was younger and continued to tell me that. And if someone tells you that you are being arrogant or cocky, tell them that's confidence.
There is a difference, right?
There is a difference. You
There's
know when
a-
you're being arrogant and cocky and when you're
Okay.
being confident. And don't let anybody talk you down off of that. Know who you are and whose you are, and just walk confidently in that. Period.
Nice. So Lou, if the students or anybody want to get a hold of you, where can, or if that amazing job who wants to hire one of the best marketers out there, I mean, how do people find you online?
I have a uniquely spelled name, so I'm not hard to find at all. You can look for Lucretia Braxton. I hang out a lot on Instagram on my account, Lucretia. I do tweet sometimes, not as often as I used to. Sometimes, just a little bit, trying to get back into it. But I'm not hard to find. And I'm Lucretia Braxton at gmail.com. And students, Cece knows how to get in touch with me. So you all are forever welcome to reach out. And I'm always open to conversations and expanding my network of people.
Just be ready for the honesty, because Lou does not, as you've
Yes.
seen, if you've been watching, she does not pull punches. That's one of the reasons I love her.
Yes, and I always want young people to be successful. It's one of the blessings. I've been able to speak at the business school up in Cincinnati at UC a few times and speak to the women's groups there. And it's just critically important where I see that their confidence slightly wavers. I'm like, stand up straight and present yourself and speak your truth. Your words, me. So don't, and well, I know I'm young. And that's another thing too. Stop saying that. Stop saying, well, I'm young and everything. That is not a barrier to you doing your youth. That's a privilege.
Amen.
Use the privilege of that youth because you haven't messed up as much as some of us. So use the privilege of that youth and saying, okay, wait a minute. I saw my mom and daddy, my parents or teachers and stuff messing up with that. I know now not to do that. So your youth is a beautiful quality, and just use everything about it that helps you be amazing.
Awesome. Well, Lou, thank you very, very much. I appreciate your time. I know you're a busy woman, and it was just, God, it was good to see you.
You too. We just need to make a point of staying in better contact with each other.
We need to do more Instagram voice. That I love you. I didn't even know that existed. And one day you sent me a message. I was like, wait, Lou's talking to me. This is beautiful.
Yes, we will definitely do that.
All right. Well, thank you, Lou. You take care.
Thank you. You take care too.
All right. Everybody who's paying attention, this ends the morning session of the Scholar Strike. Thank you for tuning in. I'm going to start this back up at 2:00. Got Sean Lee, who's an amazing photographer from Detroit, and he's a community builder. And then Joseline Main, who is Boston's, I call him the social media guru of Boston. He runs the Boston Calendar, Boston Tweet Up. He does everything local. I can't wait to talk to him. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope it's been informative. I'm going to jump over to YouTube and see what's been said over there. But yeah, this will start up again at 2:00. All right. Take care. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for the awesome questions. I appreciate it. If you want to find out more about where I teach, go to wheatoncollege.edu or cc-chapman.com for more about me. Take care. See you soon.